What's up guys, Pop My Pigs for Life here, and today we're back with another episode of The Future of Hammond's Dream, Season 7 in Jurassic World Evolution 2. In today's video, we're going to be finishing building Jurassic Park, Germany. So to start, we're kicking off today's episode by working on the guest section that overlooks the Herbivore Valley for what is going to house Mamenchisaurus, Huayangosaurus, and Gigantspinosaurus. Right now, we're sort of just starting things off by laying down the basic path that is going to run throughout the guest section. In particular, I did want to get the zipline connected up as soon as I could, so that way we can get it up and operational. And to sort of make sure that the change in elevation wasn't encroaching on the path, I decided to use the Malta wall piece, just like I did with Jurassic Park Malta, so that way we would have that distinct elevation boundary. So then, once we have all of the terrain and the basic path work all figured out, then we can start by adding all of the guest buildings. So now, of course, we did have the zipline entrance long before we started working on this section of the park, but I also did decide to add in a hotel and a viewing platform overlooking the Herbivore Valley. And of course, we can't have a guest section without all of the amenities, toilet facilities, and emergency shelters. So as you can see, we've got 3 large amenities down by the tour stop, and we also are going to have 3 medium amenities up by the zip line, so that we have that sort of buffer zone for the amenity coverage being as close as we can get it to 100%. So now what we're pretty much doing is we are moving around all of the guest facilities, just so that way we can see what works, what doesn't work, how we can optimize our space to the best of our ability. And eventually we get to the point where we have used pretty much all the space that we can use without running into terrain constraints. Man, I can't wait until they get rid of those in Jurassic World Evolution 3. So now, for the 2 enclosures that we are going to have up near this guest section, we are going to have an enclosure for the Concavenator, and we are going to have an enclosure for the Mantellisaurus. So now, these are both dinosaurs that were found in the country of Spain and lived during the early Cretaceous time period. So in total, I decided to add 3 Concavenators and 12 Mantellisaurus. So 4 Mantellisaurus for every Concavenator that we have. Originally, I tried to have another river going through both enclosures. However, you'll see a little bit later in the video that this idea did not exactly work out as well as with the other areas in the park. And that is because I may have gotten a little bit ambitious with how many Mantellisaurus I wanted to add. So because that, you'll see much later in this video that I decided to revisit this area of the park, so that way we could better improve both enclosures, so that way they can both look good, but also meet the dinosaurs' needs. One thing you could also see in this video is I did a lot of jumping around from place to place. So a couple seconds ago, you saw that I was getting started with adding decorations to the guest section, and now we are configuring the Mantellisaurus enclosure. So yeah, so I was a little bit sporadic when making this video, and also there were a lot of times where I was recording quite late at night, so because of that, I needed to just pause and revisit this park the next day, so that way I could find some more ideas, especially as we really get into the video. So then, once we're done adding the last little finishing touches to the Mantellisaurus enclosure, at least for now, then we are finally able to move on to actually decorating the guest section. So now we are moving on to adding some dinosaurs to the enclosures that we planned out last video. So as you can see, that hatchery that we added is certainly coming in handy for the Herbivore Valley, because I wanted a nice big herd of each herbivore species. So Mamenchisaurus, Huayangosaurus, and Gigantspinosaurus. And this is an enclosure that I definitely went to revisit later on in this video, because as I was first adding the foliage to this enclosure, I did not realize that there is one foliage brush that all three herbivores have in common. So that was a bit of a mistake on my part. So then after we add in all of those herbivores, we are going to add in the Rajasaurus. So one thing that I was able to do was that since the Rajasaurus did not need all the space that I had initially planned out for them, I was able to take that little extension next to the Janosaurus enclosure and actually incorporate that into the Janosaurus enclosure. So because that, the Rajasaurus enclosure is a little bit smaller than I had planned, but they still ended up having plenty of room. As you can see now, we are getting a bit of a head start on the lagoon section. So the one right behind the monorail station is going to be for Shonisaurus and Nothosaurus, both species that lived during the Triassic period, and the one that is a little bit on the longer end is going to be for Megalodon, the only Cenozoic species that we have in Jurassic World Evolution 2, obviously minus the hybrids. So again, this is one of those times where there were plenty of times where I had to just take a break from Jurassic World Evolution 2, so that way I could really think about things that I wanted to put here. So for instance, right now I am trying my hand at making a sort of beach area for guests to hypothetically swim and just sunbathe, things of that nature. Of course, had to add in a shark feeding station for the Megalodons. They ended up requiring it anyway as part of their habitat requirements. And one thing that I especially loved that I did is, if you ever go to like a beach and see those sort of barriers for guests to stay in one specific part of the beach, I decided to use the Jurassic Park lights as something along those lines. So that little beachy area that I just made is very much a prototype beach, and I kept the idea of having a beach, but I sort of relocated it so that way we could fit in a couple more amenities. You'll see later on in the video. One thing I also decided to do for this guest section is I decided to add in a couple more attractions. So I believe by the end of this time lapse, there are a total of 3 attractions that we have in this little area. I wanted this area to feel almost like its own mini resort within a giant resort. So because of that, I added in all sorts of attractions, all sorts of other fun things that guests would hypothetically do, even with all of the prehistoric marine species that you've got in this area. So now here's where we're really starting to add in all of the guest facilities. So amenities, hotels. You can see that I added a Jurassic Park hotel just a couple seconds ago. I decided to add several Jurassic World hotels, one of which did eventually get replaced with another one of the aforementioned guest attractions. And one thing that I also had to play around with was how many amenities I was going to add and where exactly they were going to go. So a lot of times in Jurassic World Evolution 2, what would happen is you would have perfect amenity coverage, and then eventually you load back into the game and all of a sudden there's just a little percentage that is not covered by the amenities that were covered the last time you played Jurassic World Evolution 2. So because of that, I did sort of overestimate exactly how many we would need, hence why I decided to just play around with how many amenities and what types of amenities I wanted. And so as we are adding in all of these amenities and figuring out what goes where, I just want to quickly mention that if you're enjoying this video so far, then please consider leaving a like, commenting down below, and subscribing to the channel to see some more videos just like this one. Not only does that help support the channel, but it'll also help the YouTube algorithm by recommending more videos that you might find interesting. And as always, just by taking the time out of your day to sit down and watch my video is showing a tremendous amount of support. So as always, thank you all so much for watching this video. So now here's the part of the video where we added in the Megalodons. I decided on adding 3 individuals, and I wanted to make sure that they were colored sort of realistically. So because of that, I was a little bit more on the pickier side when choosing their skins and their patterns. And so now, as you can see, took a little break to go back and edit the Concavenator and Mantellisaurus enclosure. And also, one thing I decided to do is add in some kelp to the Megalodon enclosure. Because, fun fact, kelp actually didn't evolve until after the dinosaurs went extinct. So now here you can see that I am reconfiguring the entire Herbivore Valley so that way all of the foliage is optimized. Since both the Huayangosaurus and Chunkingosaurus liked ground leaf and the Mamenchisaurus liked tall leaf, there was one foliage option that had both ground leaf and tall leaf. So because of that, I was able to use that. So now you can see that we are sort of working on the offshoots that are going either side of the Megalodon lagoon. So mostly what I had to do was figure out where the path was going to go, how the amenities were going to fit, and eventually what I decided to do was I decided to have the path go right up against the Megalodon lagoon, and then have a couple of medium amenities go in between the path and the little bit of forest we have next to the lagoon. As you can see, also doing the same exact thing for the other side where we've got that little beach area. And especially what I had to do is I had to move the entrances to the underwater viewing domes. And so again, lots of trial, lots of error, but eventually I was able to figure out something that worked in the end. So now once again, decide to go back to the Mantellisaurus and Concavenator enclosures to see if I could finally get the perfect balance for the Mantellisaurus. So obviously they needed a ton of ground fruit. And one thing that I also wanted to try out is I wanted to see if we could add in some redwood trees, since they are much more sparse and leave plenty of room for open space. I also decided to add a couple of hills with some shrubs to see if that would give the enclosure a little bit more personality. And eventually what I decided to do was I decided to make the Concavenator enclosure just a tiny bit smaller, and I also decided to give some of the space that we took for the Montellisaurus last episode back to the Concavenators, since the Montellisaurus did not use up all that space in the end, and also decided to get the tour going up the hill a little bit closer together, so that way we could still have a little bit of extra space for the Montellisaurus. One technique that I also decided to use to save space is I decided to put the log viewing gallery right in between the Concavenator and Mantellisaurus enclosures, so that way it could provide a view of both enclosures. I did have to put the tall Malta wall piece in front of one side of the log viewing gallery, so that way the Concavenator wouldn't sneak underneath and get into the Mantellisaurus enclosure. And I also decided to finally get rid of the river going through the enclosures, because what I realized is that since the river was on one side of the enclosure, all of the Mantellisaurus wanted to congregate near the water, and because of that, they didn't encompass the entire enclosure, even though there was plenty of space. So now you can see that I'm re-adding the beach area that we had on the other side of the lake, but I had to get rid of it so that way we could fit in an emergency shelter, but I decided to add it on the other side, and this time I also added some picnic benches, as well as some of the Jurassic Park toilet decoration, which can be used as changing rooms. So now we are working on the lagoon for the Shonisaurus and the Nothosaurus. Had to add in some platforms, and now we are adding in both the Shonisaurus and Nothosaurus. I decided on 2 batches of each, so 4 Shonisaurus and 12 Nothosaurus, I believe. And now we are going back to the other side of the Megalodon enclosure to re-add some of those amenities. And here you can see I was able to use the medium amenities just by switching which side of the path they were on. I was also able to perfectly fit in an emergency shelter. So now we are adding the decorations. So I wanted to add in a little bit of path art on this side of the guest section, and overall it turned out really well. I was able to add in some natural areas. It was a little bit on the trickier side since it was going up in elevation, but eventually the way I was able to decorate it honestly makes it by far one of the best guest plazas that I have made yet in the entirety of the future of Hammond's Dream. So now pretty much the entire rest of the time-lapse from here on out is pretty much just spent adding in decorations, not just in this guest section, but I also decided to hop back to some of the other areas of the park, mostly the aviary, to add in a couple of decorations. Okay guys, so we got so much done today that I cannot even fit it in one shot, which is absolutely crazy. So I guess let's start off where we started today. So right over here, got the Concavenator enclosure. So now this enclosure has gone through many changes, but this is its final form, which I really like. I love the use of the redwood trees. Also, I feel like we just have to take a look at the skins. Love this skin. We got purple, we got orange, and we got a little green one. Man, such a cool dinosaur. So then over here we've got Mantellisaurus. We've got a pretty big herd of them. I love this skin. So yeah, there's two ways you could get a view of the Mantellisaurus. You can get a view from over here. You get a very nice view. And you can get a view from the log viewing gallery, which also looks into the Concavenator enclosure. So then over here, we've got all of the amenities. You've got this little area that overlooks the Herbivore Valley. Yeah, one thing I also did off camera is I configured each and every one of the amenities. I decided to cut that part out because it was very boring and the video would have been like 10 minutes longer. So yeah, each of the amenities have been configured. Over here, you can get another even better view of the Herbivore Valley. But by far the best view is the hotel, which isn't the best view. But yeah, another good view, especially of the Mamenchisaurus. But the best view is the zip line. Whee! Wow, you can see everything from up here. You got the Mamenchisaurus. You've got the Huayangosaurus, Gigantspinosaurus. So yeah, right here, you can get a view. You got some Gigantspinosaurus down there. So yeah, so this was the foliage that I was talking about, where, it's got both ground leaf and tall leaf, which is something that all these guys need. Mamenchisaurus over here. We've also got the log viewing gallery. Tons of Gigantspinos. And another log viewing gallery over here. So yeah, let's take a look. We got Huayangosaurus right here. So, I want to get a good view of one of the Huayangosaurus, because, one thing that we're learning about in one of my paleontology courses is that Huayangosaurus was actually different from other stegosaurids, such as Stegosaurus, Kentrosaurus, stuff like that, because of its skull. Its skull is a lot shorter and taller than a Stegosaurus skull, which is thinner and longer. So anyways, that's my little tangent over. We've got Rajasaurus in here. We got a bunch of good skins for Rajasaurus. So as I was decorating the lagoon area, I realized that there were these little pterosaur sort of statues. So I decided to put them over here to spice up the aviary complex a little bit more. But really the big addition to the park is this area right over here. So you've got a little parkway with some of the statues, got all the flags. The three attractions, by the way, we have an arcade over here, we have an aquarium. I'd imagine they have like some ammonites, maybe some other, like, amphibians and stuff. And we've got a little mini golf course. We've got plenty of little plazas also. Got some seating. Right over here, got a nice view into the Megalodon enclosure. Which, let's see if we can see them. So we have one Megalodon. We have two Megalodons. And we have three Megalodons. This one's my favorite. One thing we also have over here is we have another outdoor movie theater. So then, right in here, we've got Shonisaurus. Again, awesome skins, so I want to take a look at all of them. Ooh, love this one. Love, 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 love this one. Ooh, another good one. And yeah, this one's alright. And we've also got Nothosaurus. This one, I believe, is the Camp Cretaceous skin. So yeah, we've got a bunch of them. We got a couple sunbathing. Another Camp Cretaceous skin. And of course, we've got all the amenities. Let's take a look at some of the underwater viewing domes. Can't really see anything in there. We could probably see some stuff over here, though. Yeah, tons of Shonisaurus. And also, here's the plaza I was talking about. Absolutely love how this turned out. Obviously, we've got more amenities. And then, one other thing that I added was, of course, the beach area. So, they've got this long path that goes all the way down here. This is meant to be sort of like a lifeguard tower. Obviously, we've got all of the beach chairs, got some picnic tables, we've got some changing rooms, and then obviously this is where guests would hypothetically be able to go and swim. Oh yeah, and also, of course, I do have a ranger team right over here, you know, so that way they can take care of this area. So yeah, I'm really happy with how this entire area came out. I especially love all the plazas. And yeah, I decided to add in the statues we got with the baby dinosaurs to celebrate Jurassic World Evolution 3. So yeah, that is pretty much Jurassic Park Germany finished. So all we have left to do now is the final tour. So yeah, with that being said, that is going to wrap up today's video. Really hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If so, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe to see some more Planet Zoo and Jurassic World Evolution 2 content. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.